Welcome to the Ask JT podcast, where we simplify tax, finance and business decisions for UK business owners. I'm Justin Turner, an accountant, business owner and author. I'm going to share practical advice and help you run your business more efficiently and keep more of what you earn. Welcome back, it's Justin from Ask JT. Today I want to tell you a story about a florist, except it's not really about flowers at all. It's about how I approach business. It's about how I think about risk, speed, mentoring and control to get a business going. And it's about how I genuinely believe you can get a business off the ground in 1 week if you strip away all of the fluff and focus and you just focus on what really matters. So it all starts with the story, and it all started a few months ago. I had a small shop unit that I own, and it became available. It's been available for a little while, actually, and I'd been paying the business rates on it. It was costing me about £100 in business rates. I'd been turning down other businesses that had been asking whether they could rent out this shop. I just didn't like the type of business that was going in there. I won't tell you the type of businesses, but they're just kind of known for having problems, can I say, anyway. So this shop is really small. I mean, it's really tiny. And this woman came to view it. And she's a florist by trade, but she was in a full-time job and she hated this job. It was nothing to do with floristry. She had a young child round the corner in the local school, and this unit would be absolutely perfect for her. She was excited. She was motivated. You could definitely see that. And we agreed on the rent, and she took the lease for a year. Great. So 4 months later, no rent, no shop open. She was still working full time, and she gave me notice, and she was going to walk away. And this is where most landlords at this point just say, well, that's a shame. We'll better move on. Let's try and find another tenant. And, they're potentially back to paying the business rates. They might try and chase the unpaid rent. And it's very difficult to do that. I've been a landlord for a long time. And, these small shops, they can be very difficult, especially in there's villages in a bit of a rundown area. Also chasing someone to the ends of the earth for rent is not really the best look that I want in the local business community as well. So, maybe a landlord would start looking for a new tenant. But for me, that wasn't good enough. I couldn't leave it alone. And it's not because I'm obsessed with floristry. I'm not. It's because I wanted my rent paid. I didn't want to be on the hook for the business rates. And I wanted to get a proper business in there that was stable. We could do this. So I made her an offer. And I said to her, look, I'll give you 3 months rent free. And not only that is I'll put £3,000 of cash into your business. Not only that is I'll also cover your accountancy fees for 1 year. And I'll help you get the shop open in a week. She sort of looked at me a bit puzzled. And she said, but what's the catch? I said, well, I want 30% equity. Not because I want your profits. I want control over the business. I want to move fast. I want to help you build it properly. And once I've got my money back, I'll likely just give you the shares back. And before we kind of got into any more proper conversation about the business, I asked her and said, you've had the shop for 4 months. What's holding you back? And this is where, I found something interesting. And she said, well, I kind of need £1,500 to get the business off the ground. £1,500, that was it. And she didn't have it. That was the ultimate thing. She didn't have the money. And so I started asking her about a job, and she said, well, look, it's the type of job, I won't mention the job that she's done. She said it's really unsafe, and I've not been able to take any annual leave for ages because we're short on staff and things like that. And that was when I suddenly had a brainwave. I said, look, don't quit your job. Not yet. Go part-time if you can and use all of the unused leave that you've got. And it turned out that she had unused holiday for the year before. So you could take over a month off. So I was like, hang on a minute, well, this is great. You can have a whole month off. We can get the shop trading. we've got an opportunity where you can go down to part-time working, so it's not a cliff edge, and I'll make sure, you'll get the first take out of the business as well. We'll put you on a stable wage within the business. I'm not looking to get my £3,000 back instantaneously or anything like that. And, all of a sudden, this wasn't about just opening a shop. It was about building something. I was excited. It was great. I could see the opportunity. People in the local village where this shop is, they were asking about when's the florist shop going to open? You could see the demand was there. And this is an important thing. Isn't it interesting that I had that conversation with her, and I moved from almost the investor landlord role into the mentor? I put my accountancy brain into gear and my business brain into gear, and I started asking questions. What about that annual leave? How can we use your job to kind of soften the risk as well, and restructure things as well? I wasn't aiming to be her long-term business partner, but I wanted to give her a way of thinking differently. I was there to basically act as a support mechanism for her. Because, sometimes it's very lonely when you're in business that you just don't know what to do you? If you've never done it before. And here is this man who comes along with 20 years of business experience. He owns a accountancy firm. He's got a background in technology. I mean, I've got a computer science degree. I ran a web development agency. I've owned a print company. I've done all sorts of weird and wonderful things. And I'm a landlord as well. I teach at a local university. And it's very difficult, I think, for someone in her shoes to look at me objectively and think, what's this guy wanting, But look, she hasn't done it yet. I don't know whether she will do it. And I just thought this was such a great podcast episode. I was too excited about it. I had to talk about it. And I want to run you through what I'm going to do, what I would do anyway, to get this business open within a week. So we'd obviously, of that £3,000, we'd use £1,000 to £1,500 of it to buy stock, a few tools, think that sort of thing, just to get the kind of that initial get going sort of funds that we all need. We get a domain name registered. A lot of people don't know how to do that. It's actually relatively easy. I can take that a step further. I know how to deploy something like a Cloudflare content delivery network, so we could build a really solid DNS kind of system behind the business. That makes it really, really easy. I'd get onto probably G Suite, and get their proper email account with a proper domain name, which you already had a name in mind. Absolutely great. I'd probably build a basic website using AI tools. Probably wouldn't be perfect. Maybe use Replicard or Shopify, something like that. I'd get an email marketing database set up on day one. Yeah, we haven't got any data yet. But I tell you what, I believe in this thing called education marketing, that actually, if someone comes and buys some flowers, how about saying to them, do you know what? Can we put you on our email database and you'll get a couple of emails on how to look after those flowers to make them last the longest? That means we're going to give them some education. We're going to give them value after they've bought. I mean, this is crazy stuff, isn't it? But this is how successful businesses are built, because I tell you what, we'll also be sending them some promotions later down the line. We want to know when their daughter's getting married. We want to know when, it's Mother's Day. They want to know about the kind of amazing products that this shop's going to offer, don't they? And that's what it's going to do. We've got straight in there with a marketing system. It doesn't have to be flash. And it's really easy nowadays to create these kind of automated things that can just go out, and we're harvesting that data. No problem at all. It's an easy sell for somebody. I'd get the company registered. My accountancy practice, we do loads of this stuff. We know how to register a company. We'd have that company within a couple of days. While I was waiting for the company, I'd get Canva. I've got a premium license of Canva for my other business. So we'd get a logo. Yeah, it might not be the best logo in the world, but it's a logo. We get some business cards done. We get some flyers designed. We get that signage designed. I can do all of that in Canva without any serious need for a graphic designer. I'd call in some of my contacts as well. I've got a address book of contacts. And not only could we use these contacts for kind of selling to people as well, but we could get the shop sign printed in no time at all. I've been really loyal to my contacts over the years, and I bet you that I could ring up a couple of them and say, I need this stuff urgently, and it would be there for me. I'd get a business bank account open. I'd use one of the online providers, Starling, Monzo or Tide, someone like that. I don't care. Whoever's going to do this job for me the fastest. I'd deploy Xero, the accountancy software for bookkeeping. My accountancy firm, we've already got procedures for clients. We'd get that set up. We're going to be absolutely rocking and rolling from day one. I'd get that business listed on Google Places. Really easy to do. We'd get posts into the local Facebook groups, and I bet we'd get 50 people through the door in the first week. And that's it. We're not talking about a 10k fit out. We're not talking about 6-month delays. I'm talking about a real business, working business, open and trading. Most people overthink starting. They imagine they need £20,000. I need a 40-page business plan and months of prep. Well, I'm a disciple of something called lean startup, which is an innovation practice about using what you've already got around you. We're not going to be buying new stuff. Those tools, we could buy them secondhand. We could buy a workbench secondhand. We've already got Canva. We've already got my skills of knowing how to set up a website. And it's not about doing it cheap. Necessarily about cheaply. It's about doing it quickly. Sometimes you do have to invest some money, and actually the right signage going up on the shop, actually that might be worth investing some money in because it's going to stay there for a while. It's sometimes about fixing as you go. And the example I always think about is Uber. When Uber launched, it looked like they were doing everything wrong as a taxi firm, but actually they were disrupting a marketplace, but they were using a principle of lean startup, and they were about getting going really, really quickly. And what I was offering her was that chance, not just a financial deal. It was about kind of getting her out of the current situation she was in and offering her another way of doing stuff. Did she take the offer? Well, no, she hasn't yet, so we're still waiting. But, at the end of the day, if you had a shop unit and £3,000 and 1 week, could you launch something? Because I believe you can, and it doesn't have to be a florist shop. You're likely to have some sort of skills to do it. Think about what skills you've got, what you could do, how you could sell them. What's your marketing system? You can break this down and you can move fast. You can use modern tools. AI is a wonderful tool. I was talking about building websites using AI. That all of this stuff is absolutely at your fingertips. And, try not to overthink stuff. I'm very fortunate. I've got 20 years of business experience. I've done all sorts of stuff. I've had successes. I've had failures. And, it's not necessarily about having all of the answers all of the time. It's about having a go. And so what if your website isn't running on day one when you open the business? As long as the door's open, we've put some leaflets around and we've got some clientele coming in and maybe we're capturing some of that data. Actually, that's a great success. We can work on the website later. And it's about how I see opportunity. It's about how I think about partnerships. And it's also about how I believe in mentorship as well. I suppose if I hadn't come along, she would have just given up. And it's about someone sometimes just saying, do you know what? Let's do this together. This is how we're going to do it and how we move forward. My friend Ross, he's a avid listener to kind of my stuff, and he reads a lot of my blog posts and he often discusses them with me and says sometimes I don't agree with you, Justin, and all of that sort of stuff. But Ross has got one of these wonderful catchphrases that he uses, and I've known Ross a long time, and he says, and this is what we're going to do. And people like that are rare. Having someone come along and say, this is what we're going to do can make all the difference. Anyway, I'm going to stop there. Thanks for listening today. I hope this has given you some ideas. Maybe it's motivated you. I want to get you out from feeling safe and ready. And I'll see you in the next podcast episode. And I hope you've enjoyed this one. Thanks for listening. Bye. Thanks for listening to the Ask JT podcast. Subscribe for a weekly episode. And if you found this useful, share it with a fellow business owner who might benefit.